Alrighty, good evening guys. Back from rehearsal tonight. Need a bit of sleep, but not before we get to our weekly Lovecraft tale. So we will do a quick stream test, make sure everything sounding and looking okay, and then it's on to the thing on the doorstep. Not entirely sure, I haven't done this one before, but in any case we'll take a look and enjoy. The 3, 2, 1 and a 1, 2, 3. We are looking stable and steady, so let us begin with the thing on the doorstep. Not too much battery on my phone, but we'll make it work. Part 1. It is true that I have sent 6 bullets through the head of my best friend, and yet I hope to show by this statement that I am not his murderer. At first, I shall be called a madman, madder than the man I shot in his cell at the Arkham Sanitarium. Later, some of my readers will weigh each statement, correlate it with the known facts, and ask themselves how I could have believed otherwise than as I did after facing the evidence of that horror. That thing on the doorstep. Until then, I also saw nothing but madness in the wild tales I have acted on. Even now, I ask myself whether I was misled, or whether I am not mad at all. I do not know, but others have strange things to tell of Edward and Asenath Derby, and even the stolid police are at their wits' ends to account for that last terrible visit. They have tried weakly to concoct a theory of a ghastly jest or warning by discharging servants, yet they know in their hearts that the truth is something infinitely more terrible and incredible. So I say that I have not murdered Edward Darby. Rather have I avenged him, and in so doing purged the earth of a horror whose survival might have loosed untold terrors on all mankind. There are black zones of shadow close to our daily paths, and now and then some evil soul breaks a passage through. When that happens, the man who knows must strike before reckoning the consequences. I have known Edward Pickman Derby all his life, 8 years my junior. He was so precocious that we had much in common from the time he was 8 and I 16. He was the most phenomenal child scholar I have ever known, and at 7 was writing verse of a somber, fantastic, almost morbid cast which astonished the tutors surrounding him. Perhaps his private education and coddled seclusion had something to do with his premature flowering. An only child, he had organic weaknesses which startled his doting parents and caused them to keep him closely chained to their side. He was never allowed out without his nurse, and seldom had a chance to play unconstrainedly with other children. All this doubtless fostered a strange, secretive inner life in the boy, with imagination as his one avenue of freedom. At any rate, his juvenile learning was prodigious and bizarre, and his facile writings, such as to captivate me, despite my greater age. About that time, I had leanings toward art of a somewhat grotesque cast, and I found in this younger child a rare kindred spirit. What lay behind our joint love of shadows and marvels was, no doubt, the ancient, mouldering, and subtly fearsome town in which we lived, which cursed, legend-haunted Arkham, whose huddled, sagging gambrel roofs and crumbling Georgian balustrades brood out the centuries beside the darkly muttering Miskatonic. As time went by, I turned to architecture and gave up my design of illustrating a book of Edward's demonic poems. Yet our comradeship suffered no lessening. Young Derby's odd genius developed remarkably, and in his 18th year his collected nightmare lyrics made a real sensation when issued under the title Azathoth and Other Horrors. He was a close correspondent to the notorious Baudelarian poet Justin Joffrey, who wrote The People of the Monolith, and died screaming in a madhouse in 1926 after a visit to a sinister, ill-regarded village in Hungary. In self-reliance and practical affairs, however, Derby was greatly retarded because of his coddled existence. His health had improved, but his habits of childish dependence were fostered by over-careful parents, so that he never traveled alone, made independent decisions, or assumed responsibilities. It was early seen that he would not be equal to a struggle in the business or professional arena, but the family fortune was so ample that this formed no tragedy. As he grew to years of manhood, he retained a deceptive aspect of boyishness. Blond and blue-eyed, he had the fresh complexion of a child, and his attempts to raise a mustache were discernible only with difficulty. His voice was soft and light, and his pampered, unexercised life gave him a juvenile chubbiness rather than the paunchiness of premature middle age. He was of good height, and his handsome face would have made him a notable gallant had not his shyness held him to seclusion and bookishness. Derby's parents took him abroad every summer, and he was quick to seize on the surface aspects of European thought and expression. His Poe-like talents turned more and more toward the decadent, and other artistic sensitiveness and yearnings were half aroused in him. We had great discussions in those days. I had been through Harvard, had studied in a Boston architect's office, had married, and had finally returned to Arkham to practice my profession, settling in the family homestead in Saltonstall, St., since my father had moved to Florida for his health. Edward used to call almost every evening, till I came to regard him as one of the household. He had a characteristic way of ringing the doorbell or sounding the knocker that grew to be a veritable code signal, so that after dinner I always listened for the familiar 3 brisk strokes, followed by 2 more after a pause. Less frequently, I would visit at his house and note with envy the obscure volumes in his constantly growing library. Derby went through Miskatonic University in Arkham, since his parents would not let him board away from them. He entered at 16 and completed his course in 3 years, majoring in English and French literature and receiving high marks in everything but mathematics and sciences. He mingled very little with the other students, though looking enviously at the daring or bohemian set whose superficially smart language and meaninglessly ironic pose he adapted. He aped, and whose dubious conduct he wished he dared adopt. What he did so was to become an almost fanatical devotee of subterranean magical lore, for which Miskatonic's library was and is famous. Always a dweller on the surface of fantasy and strangeness, he now delved deep into the actual runes and riddles left by a fabulous past for the guidance or puzzlement of posterity. He read things like the frightful Book of Ebon, the Unasprecklichen Kulten of von Junst, and the forbidden Necronomicon of the mad Arab Abdul al-Hazred. Though he did not tell his parents he had seen them. Edward was 20 when my son and only child was born, and seemed pleased when I named the newcomer Edward Derby Upton after him. By the time he was 25, Edward Derby was a prodigiously learned man and a fairly well-known poet and fantasist, though his lack of contacts and responsibilities had slowed down his literary growth by making his products derivative and overbookish. I was perhaps his closest friend, finding him an inexhaustible mine of vital theoretical topics, while he relied on me for advice in whatever matters he did not wish to refer to his parents. He remained single, more through shyness, inertia, and parental protectiveness than through inclination, and moved in society only the slightest and most perfunctory extent, When the war came, both health and ingrained timidity kept him at home. I went to Plattsburgh for a commission, but never got overseas. So the years wore on. Edward's mother died when he was 34, and for months he was incapacitated by some odd psychological malady. His father took him to Europe, however, and he managed to pull out of his trouble without visible effects. Afterward, he seemed to feel a sort of grotesque exhilaration, as if of partial escape from some unseen bondage. He began to mingle in the more advanced college set, despite his middle age. Hey, it's Grim! Our first chatter of the week. It is indeed Grim. How are you doing, sir? Mr. Grim. Yeah, I did a quick stream test. Hello, bro. It is great to see you. We've had some good fun lately. Micro, Diablo, Darkest, Red Dead, other things, and a Lovecraft Tale at the moment. Doing alright between rehearsals here. Hope you've been doing well. It's a bit late here, but I missed you and our New Zealand fun. We had the Australian Zoo board for the set still, so I thought that was funny. A little mural for the set. Got some costume sets today, one more run through tomorrow. Then we'll have a few days for main show before we start Tech Week at the end of this weekend. So, glad you could join us for a good bit of fun. Lovecraft Tales. Main show return, if not tomorrow night. Yeah, I was going to check if subscriber mode is off. I did check between streams, but you have verified for us that it is indeed off. Just been a slow day for slow chat last few days. But, yeah, if we don't have main show tomorrow, it was D-Day today. Didn't realize that. Today is D-Day? Just looking at the actual calendar here. Happy D-Day. Yeah, if we don't get to main show tomorrow night, then Thursday will be a great return. We'll get a few days of fun. Then it'll be a whole week of micro, pretty much, because Tech Week for our opening weekend. Very excited for that. Got my costume tonight. It's looking pretty good. Simple, fun. Guess most of us won't have swords, sadly, but it'll still be fun. So how was work, Graham? What you been up to? How's everything in the New Zealand Oceania part of the world? Can play hunt with a controller, so I will get better doing trials. Usually, yeah, trials are good practice. There are a lot of instances you'll never really encounter in the main game, but same as the tutorial, basically, it's its own thing. But yeah, I hope you enjoy, and if you prefer the PlayStation, you'll never be quite as accurate as mouse and keyboard. But if you prefer that, that's what you're most comfortable with, then who am I to argue? Yeah, we'll look forward to more of that soon. The summer event's coming. I just finished up the quest line before coming to the rehearsal week. So Saturday, finished that up, so that was good. And the summer event should be coming about a month or so. We will definitely look forward to that. The Tail Master. Good for Lovecraft Tale tonight, isn't it? Trying to do stream tests, man. There's so many ads on Twitch and YouTube. It is hard trying to get better because it's starting to get to winter, so. Yeah, hope you stay healthy, Graham. Get those vitamins, vitamin C for sure. Have some Eco Boost myself. About to go to bed here in a little bit, but watch some cars and such today. We'll see if I get too busy with other work tomorrow before our next run through. Otherwise, would like to get to a chapter or two of Micro. We shall see. But lovely times. Appreciate you coming to chat. You have been our first chatter of the week, first chatter several streams, several days. So it's lovely to see you, Dragon Knight Graham. You are bringing the chat to life. May you be an example to all Dragon Knights, because really without you, there would be no chat. So this stream is for you, Graham. You made it great. You made it worth it. I'm glad you're here. Let's see where we left off. Oh yeah, good stuff. Hope Alucard's doing well. Also, great brothers, Dragon Knight brothers. Lovely time of it. Hopefully you can hear me fairly well. So I'll read a couple more parts of this. I don't think we'll get through the whole thing tonight, but I guess we'll see. Yeah, hopefully Alucard's doing great. Glad to see you, Graham. Let's get to a little bit more. I went to Plattsburgh for a commission, but never got overseas. Hey, it's Alucard as well. Dragon Champion, Alucard. Hello, Governor. We had that tonight rehearsal too. Boo to you as well, Alucard with the champion sigil. Looking absolutely lovely, even in mobile chat. Main show or mobile chat as we read some Lovecraft. Fantastic to have you back, Dragon Champion, Alucard. How's it been, Alucard? Been just a little while. We missed you, your brother Grimm, bringing our chat to life here for the first time this week. Very exciting. So we get to more Lovecraft and other good fun. You're in the Dragon's Roost mobile or main show. We always have a great time of it. Decided to take a little break from the mobile game streams because they are kind of inconsistent, hard to do. How'd it go today, Alucard? Great to see you. Between rehearsals, have our last rehearsal of the week coming up tonight, tomorrow night. Technically tomorrow night here. It'll be Wednesday night. I get a few days of main show before we start a whole long 7-day tech week, which will be for our opening weekend. So we're really going to be nice and warmed up for a great opening weekend. Just going to be a lot of days in a row, so we shall see. Non-stop, all the way. That's how theater life goes sometimes, but it's great to see you, bro. How you been? Some Lovecraft at the moment, with good fun. So the years wore on. Edward's mother died when he was 34, and for months, yes. advanced college settlement of age, and was present at some extremely wild doings, on one occasion paying heavy blackmail, which he borrowed of me, to keep his presence at a certain affair from his father's notice. Some of the whispered rumors about the wild Miskatonic set were extremely singular. There was even talk of black magic and of happenings utterly beyond credibility. If you are ready then, Grim and Alucard, Dragon Knights of the Roost. Great to see you both. We are on to part 2 of The Thing on the Doorstep. Hopefully. It's great to see you, brothers. I always have chat priority, try to keep my voice down a little bit because it is late. But I'll do what I can. In any case, Graham Alucard, thank you for joining me in chat tonight. We will return to main show tomorrow night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, hopefully a good bit on Sunday as well. Things coming together, good clarity moving forward, and we will figure out the best course of action for the coming few months ahead. But one day at a time, one moment at a time after all. But a series of collective moments, months, years, and minutes, so all we have is now after all. When you boil it down, when you come to think of it, all there is the present moment, right here, right now. So let's make the most of it, shall we? Part 2. Edward was 38 when he met Asenath Waite. She was, I judge, about 23 at the time, and was taking a special course in medieval metaphysics at Miskatonic. The daughter of a friend of mine had met her before in the Hall School at Kingsport, and had been inclined to shun her because of her odd reputation. She was dark, smallish, and very good-looking, except for over-protuberant eyes. G.G. Alucard. But something in her expression alienated extremely sensitive people. It was, however, largely her origin and conversation which caused average folk to avoid her. She was one of the Innsmouth Waites, and dark legends have clustered for generations about crumbling, half-deserted Innsmouth and its people. There are tales of horrible bargains about the year 1850, and of a strange element not quite human in the ancient families of the run-down fishing port. Tales such as an old-time Yankees can devise and repeat with proper awesomeness. We had 36% battery, should last us a little while longer. We'll probably get to another part or two, see how it looks. Good to see you. Alucard, Dracula. We'll get both of your sound alerts, of course, next time. A lot of fun with that. Main show the next few days, hopefully. Asenath's case was aggravated by the fact she was Ephraim Waite's daughter, the child of his old age by an unknown wife who always went veiled. Ephraim lived in a half-decayed mansion in Washington Street, Innsmouth, and those who had seen the place, Arkham folk avoid going to Innsmouth whenever they can, declare that the attic windows were always boarded, and that the strange sounds sometimes floated from within as evening drew on. The old man was known to have been a prodigious magical student in his day, and legend averred that he could raise or quell storms at sea according to his whim. I had seen him once or twice in my youth, as he came to Arkham to consult forbidden tomes at the college library, and had hated his wolfish, saturnine face with its tangle of iron-gray beard. He had died insane, under rather queer circumstances, just before his daughter, by his will made a nominal ward of the principal, entered the Hall School, but she had been his morbidly avid pupil, and looked fiendishly like him at times. The friend whose daughter had gone to school with Asenath Waite repeated many curious things when the news of Edward's acquaintance with her began to spread about. Asenath, it seemed, had posed as a kind of magician at school, and had really seemed able to accomplish some highly baffling marvels. She professed to be able to raise thunderstorms, though her seeming success was generally laid to some uncanny knack at prediction. All animals markedly disliked her, and she could make any dog howl by certain motions of her right hand. There were times when she displayed snatches of knowledge and language very singular and very shocking. For a young girl, when she would frighten her schoolmates with leers and winks of an inexplicable kind, and would seem to extract an obscene and zestful irony from her present situation. Most unusual, though, were the well-attested cases of her influence over other persons. She was, beyond question, a genuine hypnotist. By gazing peculiarly at a fellow student, she would often give the latter a distinct feeling of exchanged personality, as if the subject were placed momentarily in the magician's body and able to stare half across the room at her real body, whose eyes blazed and protruded with an alien expression. Asenath often made wild claims about the nature of the nature of consciousness, and about its independence of the physical frame, or at least from the life processes of the physical frame. Her crowning rage, however, was that she was not a man, since she believed a male brain had certain unique and far-reaching cosmic powers. Given a man's brain, she declared, she could not only equal but surpass her father in mastery of unknown forces. Edward met Asenath at a gathering of intelligentsia held in one of the students' rooms, and could talk of nothing else when he came to see me the next day. He had found her full of the interest and erudition which engrossed him most, and was in addition wildly taken with her appearance. I had never seen the young woman, and recalled casual references only faintly, but I knew who she was. It seemed rather regrettable that Derby should become so upheaved about her, but I said nothing to discourage him, since infatuation thrives on opposition. He was not, he said, mentioning her to his father. In the next few weeks, I heard a very little but Asenath from young Derby. Others now remarked Edward's autumnal gallantry, though they agreed that he did not look even nearly his actual age, or seemed at all inappropriate as an escort for his bizarre divinity. He was only a trifle paunchy, despite his indolence and self-indulgence, and his face was absolutely without lines. Asenath, on the other hand, had the premature crow's feet which come from the exercise of an intense will. About this time, Edward brought the girl to call on me, and I at once saw that his interest was by no means one-sided. She eyed him continually with an almost predatory air, and I perceived that their intimacy was beyond untangling. Soon afterward, I had a visit from old Mr. Derby, whom I had always admired and respected. He had heard the tales of his son's new friendship, and had wormed the whole truth out of the boy. Edward meant to marry Asenath, and had even been looking at houses in the suburbs. Knowing my usually great influence with his son, the father wondered if I could help to break the ill-advised affair off, but I regretfully expressed my doubts. This time it was not a question of Edward's weak will, but of the woman's strong will. The perennial child had transferred his dependence from the parental image to a new and stronger image, and nothing could be done about it. The wedding was performed a month later by a justice of the peace, according to the bride's request. Mr. Derby, at my advice, offered no opposition, and he, my wife, my son, and I attended the brief ceremony, the other guests being wild young people from the college. Asenath had brought the old Crown and Shield place in the country at the end of High Street, and they proposed to settle there after a short trip to Innsmouth, whence 3 servants and some books and household goods were to be brought. It was probably not so much consideration for Edward and his father as a personal wish to be near the college, its library, and its crowd of sophisticates that made Asenath settle in Arkham instead of returning permanently home. When Edward called on me after the honeymoon, I thought he looked slightly changed. Asenath had made him get rid of the undeveloped mustache, but there was more than that. He looked soberer and more thoughtful, his habitual pout of childish rebelliousness being exchanged for a look almost of genuine sadness. I was puzzled to decide whether I liked or disliked the change. Certainly, he seemed for the moment more normally adult than ever before. Perhaps the marriage was a good thing. Might not the change of dependence from a start toward actual neutralization leading ultimately to responsible independence? He came alone, for Asenath was very busy. She had brought a vast store of books and apparatus from Innsmouth. Derby shuddered as he spoke the name, and was finishing the restoration of the Crown and Shield house and grounds. Her home in that town was a rather disquieting place, but certain objects in it had taught him some surprising things. He was progressing fast in esoteric lore now that he had Asenath's guidance. Some of the experiments she proposed were very daring and radical. He did not feel at liberty to describe them, but he had confidence in her powers and intentions. The 3 servants were very queer, an incredibly aged couple who had been with old Ephraim and referred occasionally to him and to Asenath's dead mother in a cryptic way, and a swarthy young wench who had marked anomalies of features and seemed to exude a perpetual odor of fish. That is it for part 2. I think we will get to part 3 Next time, I hope you enjoyed The Thing on the Doorstep. First couple parts, part 3, perfect time after Odor of Fish to pick up on. Then thank you to the New Zealand brothers, Grimm and Alucard, Dragon Knights of the Roost, Dragon Champion Alucard for stopping by. Yes, lovely to see you, brothers. Let's pick it up very soon then. Not tomorrow because of rehearsal and other work around the house and things. Then Thursday for sure for main show return. We'll show the Hunt Captures. We'll get to some more Diablo 2 and some Darkest Dungeon to start. Probably some Red Dead as well. Great to see you, Alucard. Gonna head to bed. It is 1:30. My battery is low anyway. Thank you, bros. Chat again soon. Look forward to many fun features and fun times. And Diablo 4. Without too long, if you'd like to join me, co-op Alucard Grimm, Diablo 4. I am in the process of saving up for it. We are at our Diablo 2 Resurrected cheer goal. Currently 8 months over for a $20 equivalent of bits. I guess $40 New Zealand dollar. I was talking to Australia friend. He said it was like about almost twice as much. Whole lot of I have 8 ads on Twitch. You gotta be kidding me. Just for a stream test, 8 ads. All right, there we go. See you tomorrow. See you soon. Take care. Eyes open. All the best. Thank you, Alucard. Thank you, friends. Thank you, Grimm. See you again soon. Good night for now. Eyes open. Take care. Gonna be great. Catch you in a bit. Good night. Good night. Good night.